Hey there, I have a question for you. If right now, if I were to snap my fingers and something bad financially were to happen to you, like your car breaks down or you lose your job or your water heater explodes or your furnace breaks down, would you be able to cover the bill? Or would you instead have to slide the credit card or take out a loan to cover the cost and thereby put yourself into additional debt? You see, the question of today's video is, do you have an emergency fund? And if not, how can you get one? Hello, my name is Michael, and if you suffered through that morbid introduction, in today's video we are going to be talking about what an emergency fund is, why you should have one, and how you can go about getting one if you don't have one already. First, we'll start with what an emergency fund is. Typically, an emergency fund is cash saved up for about 3 to 6 months of expenses. And at bare minimum, it should at least be $1,000 saved up. This is a sum of money that you have saved up that you're going to be using for emergencies, such as your car breaks down, or your furnace explodes, or you lose your job. It's important to note what an emergency fund is not. An emergency fund is not a savings that you're going to go use on vacation or use towards Christmas presents or people's birthday. It's also not used if you just had a bad day at work and you want to go spend some money on buying yourself some new clothes. That's definitely not what you should be using your emergency fund for. Another key distinction you should make with an emergency fund is that it is not money that you have invested in the stock market or something like that. This basically is money that you have in a savings account in a bank, or money that you keep in your underwear drawer or under your mattress or whatever. It has to be liquid, meaning it has to be money that you can get to quickly. It shouldn't be money that you have to go sell something off or sell a stock or, I don't know, drive somewhere to get. It should be money that you have and you can access very quickly. Moving into the next topic of today's video, and that is why you should have an emergency fund. You see, the statistic is that in a 10-year period of time, 78% of people are bound to have some type of financial emergency, and they'll have to be able to cover the cost. As Dave Ramsey quotes in his famous book, The Total Money Makeover, there's a famous law called Murphy's Law, which basically explains that if something can go wrong, it's going to go wrong. Your water heater is going to explode and blow through the roof of your house. You may even sadly potentially lose a job that you've had for quite a bit of time. Or, more ironically, an adult child may move back home after graduating college to stay with mom and dad. I've done that one. And without an established emergency fund, you're going to have to do one of two things to cover the cost of the emergency. Number one, you're either going to have to stop paying for a specific bill that's due that month, and therefore you're going to get behind on that bill and have debt. Or the second thing you're going to have to do is swipe a credit card to cover the cost, or you're going to take out a loan to cover the cost. Either way, you are putting yourself into more debt, which is going to put you behind in your financial freedom journey, and it's going to put you in a greater, larger sum of detrimental debt in your life. And let's be honest, building up more debt is the last thing that you want to do, especially if you're on a journey to be financially free, to be rid of debt. The last thing you want to do is have an emergency cause you to go backwards in that journey and build up more and more debt. But the bright side is that if you have a well-established and well-padded emergency fund, you can start turning financial disasters into minor inconveniences. Just think about it this way. If right now I were to, once again, snap my fingers and all 4 tires on your car popped, depending on what type of car you drive, that can be upwards of $400 to $500 to get all brand new tires on your car. And if you do not have an emergency fund, how are you going to get that $500? Well, most people, most Americans, are going to simply take a credit card and they're going to swipe it, and yep, sure, you've gotten 4 brand new tires on your car, but all you've done is jump out of the frying pan and into the fire, that fire being debt. Because if you didn't have money to begin with to cover the tires, you're not going to have money to pay for the credit card debt, which is the worst type of debt you can get yourself into. It is so predatory, and it is so building with the compound interest and the high interest rates that are on these credit cards. And so that is definitely something you don't want to do. However, if you have a well-padded emergency fund, or at least $1,000 in this scenario, you can simply take out that money from your underwear drawer or from the bank in your savings account, and you can use that to pay for the 4 brand new tires on your car. And sure, you have gone down $500 in your emergency fund, but look at what you haven't done. You haven't set yourself back financially in terms of your debt freedom journey or becoming financially free. You simply have used your emergency fund for what it is built and designed to do, to cover a cost that you had no way of knowing about. In the next part of the video, I want to go over how, if you don't have one already, how you can build up an actual emergency fund. Or let's start with $1,000 that you are going to designate towards unexpected emergencies. Now, if you already have an emergency fund, congratulations, that's great. You can skip off this video. I have a link to one up here. You can go check that one out. But if you do not have an emergency fund, stay tuned, because I'm going to be going over some quick tips and tricks that you can use to pad yourself in case of an emergency. However, before we go over the tips and tricks to building an emergency fund, be sure, as always, to give this video a thumbs up, to subscribe to the channel, as that really helps this channel get out there so that more people can view it. Thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate it. So let's now go over how you can begin building up your first $1,000 to use towards an emergency fund. Remember, this is not money that you are going to go take and use at Starbucks or some clothing store or to buy a new iPhone. This is money that you are going to set aside under your mattress, in a sock drawer, in your savings account at the bank, for a rainy day, for when an emergency, an actual emergency, comes your way and you need to be able to pay for it quickly. So in order to begin saving up for an emergency fund, you need sometimes to get creative. You need to think outside the box, and especially if you have no money saved up right now, you kind of need to get intense, because you are one step away from a financial disaster. Basically, think about it this way: you have one foot in the grave and the other foot is on a banana peel. You're one accident away from going into severe debt. So action number 1 that you need to take, if you haven't done this already, in order to build an emergency fund, is that you need to set up a budget if you haven't already. I know I sound like a broken record on this channel when I say you need to have a budget, but if you don't know how much money you have coming in versus how much you have going out, there will be no way you can save for an emergency fund. So if you haven't created a budget already, I will leave a link up here to how I created my budget. However, it's pretty simple. Just look at how much money you have coming in versus what all your expenses are that the money needs to go out for, and simply track it. See if you can cover all your expenses. The next thing to do once you have your budget is that you need to look at all your expenses and say, okay, I don't have an emergency fund right now. What can I do without for a short temporary amount of time until I have at least $1,000 saved up? Maybe you're the type of person that has Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus, and you got 2 different gym memberships because you like to go to this gym with one of your friends and this gym with another one of your friends. Maybe you're someone that each month you like to buy new shoes or get new clothes or buy a new watch, or I don't know, buy an expensive fountain pen or something like that. You like to splurge a little bit each month. If you don't have at least $1,000 saved up or an emergency fund at all, you may need to cut out these expenses entirely until you have an emergency fund established. But by not spending money on Starbucks or a new watch or new clothes, instead you are going to take that money and then use it to put towards an emergency fund. You're going to save it instead of spending it. Then once you go through your budget and you know what you can slash from your budget, it's best to then look around your house and see, hey, what are some things that I can potentially sell to make a little bit of extra money so that you can put that towards your emergency fund. Look around, go through your closet. Maybe you have some clothes that you don't really wear anymore. You can sell them on Facebook Marketplace or eBay or all the various online shopping sites that are so readily available nowadays. Maybe you have a bunch of extra furniture in your garage that you're just saving up for, I don't know, when American Pickers comes by your house. Yes, Mom, I'm looking at you. There is always people looking to buy your junk. The next thing to look into once you've established your budget and slashed off anything you don't need, and once you've sold some items around your house that you don't really use or need anymore, the next thing, and this one might seem a little bit radical, is maybe taking up a side or a part-time job to increase your income for a short period of time. That way you can put some money towards your emergency fund. In the day and age we live in, there's actually a lot of little odd jobs that you can do, and there's actually a lot of apps that you can go look into. So for instance, there's like, if you want to walk someone's dog, there's the app called Wag. If you want to drive someone around the city, there's Uber and Lyft and things like that. If you want to deliver groceries, there's DoorDash and I think Grubhub, but I think that's more fast food. There's a lot of different things that you can do almost from the comfort of your own home or from the comfort of your own car that can actually make you some extra cash each week or each month. But I think you get the idea. Basically, if you don't have an emergency fund, you are one step away from a disaster, and so you need to get intense. You need to get radical sometimes to have some type of padding between you and emergency to build up enough cash so that if an emergency comes, you have enough cash to cover it or to pay most of the expenses down. And the nice thing is that once you've built up that $1,000 or even let's say 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund, then maybe you can cut back a little bit. You don't need to keep delivering pizzas or do Grubhub, or maybe you do. Maybe you want to keep those extra side jobs, those side hustles, so that you can put that money towards paying off debt. You know, it's up to you at that point. But anyway, I hope you found some value in this video. I'm hoping that I inspired you, if you don't have an emergency fund, as to why it is so incredibly risky to not have one and why you absolutely need one, and actually how easy it is in some ways to actually get an emergency fund set up. I mean, think about it. It's only $1,000, and in today's day and age with all the different apps and everything like that, it is incredibly easy to pick up some small side job here and there, either for a couple months or to cut out expenses entirely for a few months. That way you can build up $1,000. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video, that I've inspired you. Like this video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the little bell icon if you haven't already. And I will see you in the next video. Take care and stay safe.